Hey everybody, and welcome to episode number 36 of The Kickabout with me, Chris, and as always, Dan and Fran are with us.
Hiya.
Hi.
So before we get going, just wanted to give a quick update on what's going on with competitions and stuff. We are still in the works and still planning a competition. We hope to have some more details of that in the next week or two as the season begins to wind down. We sort of decided, didn't we, guys, that we didn't want to do another shirt giveaway, but we obviously want to do something cool for the end of the season.
Yeah.
So
Still brainstorming.
We'll get the details out as soon as we can on that. And otherwise, as always, we'll start with this. Down the stat, man.
So obviously I had to go for a League Cup theme this time. And the question is, Aymeric Laporte became the third French player to score in League Cup final. But who were the two players to do so before him? French players.
There's one very obvious one.
I can give you
about the other one.
Years if you want.
Go on, then.
So the first one was 2006 and the second one was 2014.
Okay. So split a while. Okay, no worries. Well, as always, we will pick that up towards the end of the show. We do also have a guest this week. So last week's guest, the Southampton fan, Nick, he will be on the show later to talk all things Southampton. But in the meantime, we must turn our attentions back to the European Super League and the aftermath of the rather sudden collapse not long after we finished recording last week. We don't want to go into too much detail about exactly what's happened because I think that's been well documented throughout the week. I think everyone knows the teams that pulled out and some of the other bits and pieces that went on, but there is still enough there that merits some discussion and just to sort of get our points of view on it. And I also would like to think that this is the last time we'll go into this much depth about the ESL. Hopefully it's going to kind of sort of disappear into the distance for a little while until the top six decide to try it again. And we'll get back to sort of doing our usual routine with talking about the weekend's games. But anyway, let's get on with it. So as I said, huge amount has happened since last Monday when we recorded, which we kind of knew might be the case. There was, the amount of response it got in social media with pundits, etc., and fans. It was always going to be quite a serious thing that was going on, and there was always going to provoke a serious response. Now, let's start with Florentino Perez, who appears to be the man behind all of this, or certainly one of the main players. And he had some very interesting things to say over the past few days since the ESL fell through. He said that the 12 clubs cannot leave as they have signed binding contracts. And he's also said that the project is purely on standby and nothing else. So what do you guys make of these comments? Do you think that there's a chance that he's going to try and hold these clubs to these contracts and try and pull them back in?
I think with you saw the fan backlash. I'd be amazed if clubs tried to sneak their way back into it. I think it's done, to be honest. I think it's a bit of desperation. And, maybe they did sign contracts and I think they're probably going to have to take some fines on the head. And maybe this might help Real Madrid's transfer season coming up. They might have an extra 100 million or so to spend.
Do you think this was all the ploy from Perez? This is just like a genius business move just to push out that transfer kitty of Real Madrid?
Yeah, to deplete everyone else's bank accounts, and now they can go and get Mbappe and Haaland.
I mean, he sort of went on to say that the plans are meant to save football in general, and he's talking about waning interest from certain age groups, in particular the younger age group. And he also said about the fact that there's a lot of reduced revenues in football in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic. Now, one thing I do want to make crystal clear is that the reason that Barcelona and Real Madrid are in severe financial straits at the moment, I mean, Barcelona are $1 billion or €1 billion in debt. There's 1 billion. I mean, that's 1,000 million to put it in perspective. They're in debt. And that's been on the cards. They've been going down that road for a long time. And so the pandemic did not cause that. It might have sped it up a little bit, I guess, but it certainly was not the cause. Paying obscene amounts of money for their players. I don't know what Messi's on, but he must be what, $750 a week, maybe even pushing more. I don't know what he's on these days.
Must be more than that, because I mean, Gareth Bale's on $600,000 a week at Real Madrid.
I know. But he said that football has to change and adapt. He said that we have to analyse why young people, particularly 16 to 24-year-olds, why 40% of them aren't interested in football. Why? Because there are a lot of low-quality games and they have other entertainment platforms. It's a reality. They say the games are too long. We have to change something if we want football to stay alive. Sometimes we don't understand our children or grandchildren. Well, what do you know, Dan? It turns out that the way to save football is just to make the games 10 minutes shorter.
Have they actually got proper stats for that? Like, they know that there's been a drop-off of 16 to 24-year-olds watching football?
As far as I know, he didn't back up that claim, and he wasn't pushed for it either by the interviewee. So my guess is that he may well have that information, but I would massively question the focus group or the group that have been surveyed in that, because 40% of 16 to 24-year-olds don't like football. That seems way too high.
How many 16-year-olds have TV licenses?
And what gender are they?
Well, I mean, yeah, these are really important questions. You can't just generalize like that. You know.
Yeah, sorry. What was your question about the shortening of the games?
Yeah, just sort of saying. So he's obviously talked about the shortening of the games. I just sort of tongue in cheek said that, you know, all we have to do is make the games 10 minutes shorter, and all of a sudden we've solved all the problems. I mean, the different generations. He said, you know, if young people don't watch an entire game, it's because it isn't interesting enough. There are matches that I personally can't even watch all of them, is what he said. So, I mean, you just couldn't make this up, could you? I mean, he's basically saying that the reason that the youth aren't watching the games is because they're dead rubbers. They're too long. They you know, that we can't hold their interest for 90 minutes.
I mean, I feel like that is probably true, but I don't think that's true about football. I think that's true about general life. Like, even, I mean, I struggle to hold concentration for a football match or for anything. Like, and I think I don't think it's to do with football though. I think that's to do with society, that probably people check their phones at that age during films and all this sort of stuff. Like, I just think that's the general way society's going, is that we always have to be constantly entertained. So if a football game gets boring, yeah, they'll sack it off. But I fully believe it's not to do with football, and I don't think cutting it by 10 minutes is going to do anything. I
would agree with that. And I was watching a documentary a little while ago that was saying, you know, we're just becoming a very impatient, not nation, but like world. I mean, they were talking about like music. You know, you used to have these sort of massive intros to songs, but nowadays people listen to a song. If they don't like the first sort of 10 seconds of it, they'll just play the next song.
Yeah,
so nowadays, you know, the song has to go straight into almost sort of what it's about, rather than having like a 20-second guitar intro type thing.
Yeah, I mean, we both know this as well, Dan, having both dabbled in a bit of YouTube content creation in the past with sort of gaming stuff. It's a well-known fact that videos, the optimum length of videos is like between 10 and 15 minutes. And that the largest portion of the audience will switch off during the first 30 seconds, which is why the intro and the thumbnail is so key to get people in, so that they get engaged enough that they want to carry on watching. And there's now even this thing, TikTok coming along, for example. They're very short clips most of the time. There's even now something called YouTube Shorts, which is sort of Instagram style, less than 1 minute clips now that are basically just, you know, a clip of a funny moment or whatever it is. And this is a sort of content that apparently everyone is craving, because we just, as you say, as a race of people, we just can't be asked to engage our brains for any longer than that, because we just, you know, it doesn't hold our interest and we switch off.
Yeah. I mean, talking about the games, like, oh, you know, they don't want to watch boring games, etc. Chelsea v West Brom has had how many goals this season?
It was 3-3 the first game, and it was 5-2 this time round. Yeah, right. So that's 13 goals in 2 games.
Yeah, and United v Chelsea, I'm fairly certain both games were 0-0.
No, that's it's very, very true. I mean, to be honest, this whole thing has felt like, because the American owners are the ones that seemingly have been doing a lot of the pushing internally at the top 6 clubs, I do genuinely feel like they were trying to, not only with this lack of relegation and promotion, which is a very American model of things, right? It wouldn't surprise me if if in the future they started trying to reduce the game time down to quarters and things like that. And I could just see it now having like 20-minute quarters, a half-time show, and an advert break every time there's a fucking throw-in.
I was going to say we'll be having Gatorade ad breaks and stuff like that.
But yeah, I mean, if they were genuinely, I mean, it kind of boils down to this: if they were genuinely doing it for the better of football, to save football, as they so say, then why have they done this behind everyone's back for the last 3 years? Why have they been scheming and planning this for so long and not consulting a single fan, player, or manager? They must honestly think the entire world is stupid that they think that we believe them when they say it's for the better of football.
Yeah, the whole thing was a crock of shit. The only people they fooled was themselves. Nobody believes that it was for the betterment of football. It was all to make money. I mean, the person I'm most disappointed with is Levy, and they even said it on Match of the Day. Most of them are all American, and you can almost like a 1% sort of understand it. But Levy, being English, you would have thought that he would have understood what English football meant to people.
Well, I mean, the same could also be said for Andrea Agnelli, who is the Juventus owner, because I'm pretty certain I read this correctly, is that him and his family have owned Juventus for sort of 2-3 generations. So, whilst they've obviously got an awful lot of money, it's not like they're not football people. That they are born and bred Juventus owners and Juventus fans, and yet they still wanted to go down this road. So,
I don't think Juventus have actually pulled out yet.
No, I believe, as far as I know, Juventus, Barcelona, and Real Madrid.
Real Madrid.
Yeah, I don't believe anybody else is still in.
Milan both pulled out.
Yes, they did. And do you know what's funny? The other thing as well, it kind of went under the radar a little bit that they also wanted to introduce a women's version of the ESL. And they wanted to get that up and running as soon as possible after the men's version of it get underway. And that just felt like such a throwaway thing to me. With respect, the women's game is very much in its infancy. The Super League, as it's known in the Women's Super League here in the UK, has only been running for a few years, I think. It might be slightly more than that, but you get my point. I mean, and Lyon, I think, have the best women's team in the world. I think they often win the Champions League, and they wouldn't have even been in it.
Yeah.
So it's just so dumb. It really is. So anyway, moving on. Gary Neville said it was an attempt to murder English football, and it does look ever more likely that the top 6 are not going to be punished. Certainly not in a severe way that was being sort of muted, and I believe it's still being pushed by the other 14 clubs. That they still want severe ramifications and sanctions put onto these clubs. How do you feel about this with regards to the sanctions and the punishments? What would you prefer, or what would you like to see happen?
I think it's a tough one, because I do think there should be punishments, but at the same time, it's not the manager's fault, it's not the players' fault, and it's not the fans' fault. So, given clubs a 20-point deduction, the only sort of people that's hurting is everyone but the owners, almost.
I mean, it will hurt them in their pockets because they'll be finishing a lot lower down the league, so they potentially won't get into Europe and they won't get the better cut of the TV money. But I know what you mean. I mean,
but I think they should be punished more directly.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't really know what that looks like. I mean, I had an exchange of messages with Joe Morton, friend of the show, Joe Morton, on Twitter a few days ago. And the argument wasn't really an argument. The sort of debate was that you can't have the big clubs being fined because ultimately the Premier League needs them. And the counter argument to that is that, well, yes, we do, but you could make an argument that whilst the top 6 are needed, the other 14 are just as much, if not more so, needed. So you can kind of make an argument both ways here. You can't sort of cut your nose off to spite your face by slamming the big 6 with loads of penalties just to sort of make a point. What you've got to do, I suppose, is actually now make a set of rules, maybe legislation, maybe at government level, to say, right, this is how we're going to do it, and basically block it from happening again.
I do think the UEFA and the Premier League and whoever sort of the governing body is, I do think they've wimped out a bit. You know, they've made all these sort of big threats and big sanctions, etc. And as soon as the Premier League clubs came crawling back, they were sort of like, okay, they've sort of given them a slap on the wrist, and that's it. And I mean, it's not exactly a slap on the wrist thing. You know, they weren't caught climbing a tree when they shouldn't be. They were jumping in front of a train.
Yeah, I mean, what's the UEFA? I'm trying to think of the UEFA's president. I'm just looking back on my notes last week. Alexander Seferin. He was asked directly about a peace deal with these clubs. So this is before it all started to collapse, and he actually said never. You know, he made it very, very clear that, you know, these guys had not just burned bridges, they had blown them up. And as you say, like, it all seems to have died down and fizzled out. It was almost like it was just all a massive threat to get them to back down. And speaking of backing down, Ed Woodward leaves the club at the end of the season. Liverpool fans,
like party theme tune there at all.
Liverpool fans obviously are campaigning to get FSG out of the club. Arsenal fans are trying to get Kroenke out, with the Spotify CEO publicly stating his interest by also collaborating with a couple of ex-Arsenal legends to potentially look to take over the club. And there's obviously been a lot of talk about the Glazers going, who have said, sure, we'll leave for £4 billion. So I guess the next question is do we see any of these owners leaving? Is this a watershed moment for football where we can shift some of these owners?
I think, you know, I hope so. I think if protests, I know United are doing another protest before their next game in the Europa League. And I think that's what needs to be done. Just don't let it die down. You know, don't sort of forgive and forget. We need to get these owners out, because it won't be long before they're plotting something else. And, you know, I imagine they've probably learnt their lesson from this one, and they'll plan the next one a lot better. They're not just going to accept it and go back to English football. They've obviously, you know, they've planned these for 3 years. They've obviously got something up their sleeves. And the thing I like about this Spotify bloke is he's a massive Arsenal fan. And I think that's what clubs need. They need fans to run the club, because you know they're going to be run properly. They might not have the most money, whereas I know this Spotify bloke is a billionaire. But I mean, if someone bought United that wasn't massively oil rich, etc., as long as they were a United fan, I'd be more than happy, because I know they're running their club the way that all the fans want it to be run.
Yeah, no, I agree. One amazing story that did come out from all these apologies that started coming out from these big clubs is that the Arsenal Zoom call with their fans and supporters groups. Did you guys hear about this?
No, I didn't.
So Josh Kroenke, who is the son of Arsenal owner Stan Kroenke, he was on the call, and it was basically a one-to-one call with members of the supporters group, you know, the sort of senior members of those supporters groups. And effectively, they all they wanted to do was say sorry. They had very little interest in actually hearing what the fans had to say. So the fans came away from that extremely angry, probably more so than they went into the meeting, that even after everything that's happened, the Arsenal board and executives were still not interested in hearing what the fans had to say. And apparently the same Arsenal executive, I don't know if it was Josh Kroenke or if it was somebody else, he also called all the other 14 clubs personally to apologise, and apparently got an absolute tongue lashing from one or two of them. And there's even been stories now about when they had these, you know, they used to have the Premier League meetings, but back when, you know, things were normal and you could actually meet up with people. Apparently the 6 top clubs used to kind of like huddle in the corner and have discussions, like quiet discussions away from the other 14 clubs. I mean, you just couldn't make this shit up. This is just like being in the school playground. Yeah, but anyway.
VIP lounge.
But one other story that's kind of gone under the radar again, another one that's kind of, with all this going on, there's been lots of stuff that's been creeping under the woodwork, is this stuff about the Champions League reform from UEFA. We touched on it last week. It's coming in the 2024-2025 season. Can someone explain to me? I mean, I can't remember if we've ever really talked about this in anger on the show, about Champions League reform and reforming the competition itself. can someone explain to me what's actually wrong with the current Champions League format, outside of the big clubs just wanting more money, etc.? But in terms of the format itself and the excitement levels, does it need changing?
I don't think so. I don't think it needs more teams at all. And I don't know why the answer is to constantly add more competitions and more teams to everything.
I mean, if you do that, you're diluting it, surely, because you've now got 36 teams that are now going into one league. This I don't quite understand this. So they've got 36 teams going into one league, but you only play 10 games home and away. So you're not playing everyone anyway. The top 8 go through, and the next 16 have a playoff. So, I mean, how's that going to work? So, depending on what fixtures you get, if you get harder fixtures than somebody else, how is that fair?
So what? So it's not going to be loads of groups of 4 anymore?
I mean, it suggests that it's going to be one league. But obviously everybody is not going to play everyone because that's far too many games. But you're going to be given a selection of games and selection of opponents to play. And depending on your results and where you then filter into that league table, that's going to dictate. So the top 8 will go straight through to the knockout stages, and the following 16, so all the way down to from 8 down to 24, they go into a playoff. So you end up with the last 16 before the quarterfinals.
I really can't be arsed with
it. Well, I mean, if you're if we were going to call on the fans to continue their press and continue their outcrying of anger and support for getting these owners out of these clubs and making sure this doesn't happen again, then I think we also need to try and rally the troops to try and get this overturned, because this just doesn't seem like a good idea at all.
No, I mean, they've only done it to appease the big clubs that wanted to do the Super League, haven't they?
Yeah, and I mean, the format has been criticised by fans groups. So there's also been Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola, and I think also Thomas Tuchel today also slammed the new format as well. But there is still this coefficient thing. So basically, there are 2 out of the 4 new clubs that go in will qualify based on past performance, basically. So. I don't know how that's going to look or how that's going to work, because there are some very successful UEFA teams that are not regularly in the Champions League anymore. For example, Arsenal. They've been in the competition for a long time, and recently not. But does that mean that their coefficient is still high enough? I mean, I don't know how that's going to look.
Bring back the Super League.
Ilkay Gundogan has spoken out on this. Did you see what he had to say on Twitter?
I did read it, yeah.
What did you make of that? So basically, he said, for those of you who haven't seen it, he basically sort of said, "Why aren't we talking about this new format? It's just more and more games. Why is no one thinking about the players?" It's effectively what he said.
I completely agree. Like, how it just makes me laugh that all these teams complaining that there's too many games and stuff, and you've seen it, especially with this season. I mean, there's been so many injuries, and yet
the fans aren't asking for it. The players aren't asking for it. The fans, I feel like the fans understand that the players are overplayed as it is, and the players aren't asking for it. So I mean, why are they not fucking listening?
It just makes me laugh that nobody ever gets asked. Never get, like, it would be nice just to have a little Twitter poll. Let's say, "Oh, do you fancy this?" We're like, "No, all right, thanks." But it's never that. It's always, "Oh, we're going to do this." We're like,
and then just wait for the backlash.
Yeah,
I mean, I know
rather you didn't.
All PR is good PR, but I mean, is it?
I think Florentino Perez might disagree right now. But I looked through some of the comments on that, and the general feeling is the usual shit that's coming from some fans about, well, you get paid loads of money, so it's fine. But they're still freaking human.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
They still have to train. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, I never understand people that say, well, they get paid $500,000 a week, they should be able to do it. Well, they don't have bionic legs. They're still humans. The money doesn't make you run faster or further.
No, they still. I mean, they train to unbelievable standards as athletes. They have to. They are highly conditioned athletes 24/7, really. They're traveling all over the world, and they're going to be doing more traveling in Europe away from their families. They play loads of games over Christmas and not seeing their families, all for our entertainment, and yet we're just going to continue to pump more and more football into them.
But my only disagreement to that would just be like, look at people in the army. They get paid. That's army people and things like that is where that argument comes from. It's like they get paid loads, they should be able to handle it. People in the army handle worse than them every day and get paid way worse. So I'm just saying, as devil's advocate, that's where the other side of that argument would come from.
Yeah.
I said,
the thing is with football players is that it's I was just going to say, that football players are paid on a supply and demand basis, right? Because if the money wasn't there to pay them, if the interest and the sponsorship and the merchandise sales and the TV subscription, if all of that wasn't there to fund this, these players would not be paid as much money as they are. With respect, if you're a football player, if you're Ilkay Gundogan or any other professional football player, if your agent has managed to engineer you a deal to say, right, you're going to get the exact same job that you're doing, you've just got to continue doing what you're doing, but I've managed to negotiate an extra $50,000 a week for you. You're not going to turn around and go, I don't agree with that because I feel like the army aren't paid enough or somebody else isn't paid enough. You're going to be hard pressed to find a footballer that's going to turn that down.
Yeah, for sure. But I would just say that as a fan, that's where the other side of the argument would come from, I'd say.
Indeed. So anyway, just to round off this talk on the ESL then. So we wanted to know what everyone would do to make football better. Perez wants shorter games. He wants the big teams playing each other every week. But what about everybody else? So Fran, if you're ready, what have our listeners been saying about what they potentially would look to change about football to improve it?
Yes. What do they say? We're just getting there.
Have I caught you off guard?
No, we're fine. So Robert said salary caps. 100% I agree with this. Fixed agent fees, only captains allowed to approach the refs microphones turned on like they are in rugby for VAR decisions, no offside if outside the penalty box, for juniors specifically replace throw-ins with kick-ins, and all subs should get 20 minutes. Think a yellow card sin bin might be interesting too.
There's a lot to digest there.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get my phone up.
Slowly I'll go through. So salary caps, fixed agents fees, and only captains allowing to approach the ref.
I certainly don't agree with any of that. The other side of the coin from the agent fees point of view is make it so that the players have to pay the agent fees rather than the clubs. But then I suppose all they'll do is pass that fee on to the clubs, and the clubs will just have to pay more for the players because the players have then got to pay the agents. So,
yeah. Refs microphones turned on. I think we've all.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm surprised they haven't done that, to be fair.
I think it's just the amount of swearing that they'll pick up on the microphone from all the players.
And then no offside if outside the penalty box.
Oh, that one's controversial.
No offside if outside the penalty box.
That is what I said, yeah.
So, as in you could stand, the ball could be in the other half and you could stand in front of the 18-yard box.
Yeah, is what they're saying. That's controversial.
I disagree with that one.
Yeah,
like six-a-side rules.
Yeah, I'm not sure in reality that really works. Offside needs work for damn sure, especially with VAR, but I don't know if that's the answer.
But I would agree with all the other points.
A couple people said get rid of Perez, and then make the goals bigger or the keepers shorter. Full contact, straight reds for simulation. VAR can get in the bin. I think most people think that about VAR. Josh said, I think a lot of it could be getting football on platforms that are free for that target age group they mentioned aren't interested. All of England games were on BBC and ITV, and so were the Champions League games. I think it's very hypocritical of Sky and BT saying they wouldn't broadcast, but would slap fans in the face for making them pay £10 per game during the pandemic. I agree with that to an extent.
The thing with the red card for simulation, I would completely agree with that. The problem is it's all based on opinion, and we've seen some pretty dodgy opinions from referees this season.
Yeah. The other one, actually, just going back to the first comment about the yellow card for sin bin, I find that it's interesting they haven't trialed that yet, because at our level of football, Dan, granted it's way down the football pyramid, that's been in for 2 years now, and it's unusual that that's not started to creep up the football pyramid, because I wouldn't say it's been that controversial, at our level, other than that referees perhaps either don't use it enough or just don't use it at all. So I'm surprised that we've not seen that trial, maybe even in the Championship or something.
Yeah, I did actually say on Saturday to someone, did they do it in professional football when Joe got sin bin? Because I couldn't actually remember if it was a thing or not.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. But no, Josh's point at the end there is also very, very important. I know, Dan, you had a stat or something about or somebody had written on Twitter about, the fact that when we were younger, all the games were on. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
No, that was you taking the piss at United. It's this one. 16. It was his comment of 16 to 24-year-olds aren't interested in football anymore. And then he goes on to say, when I was 15, I was watching United play Bayern, Barca, Inter and Juventus in the Champions League on ITV with 15 million others. Sky took that away. If 16 to 24-year-olds aren't interested in it, it's because they've been denied access to it.
Yeah, no, that's that will have to be taken into consideration. I'd love to know what the viewing figures are for the bigger events that are on Sky Sports and BT Sport now. And I guess we've now got, at the moment anyway, we've got 4 platforms where live football is shown to you. Or BBC have had a few games this season. You've now got Amazon have got games, and Sky and BT. Now, BBC obviously is a bit different because you have to pay a TV license fee, which most people would anyway. But all the other 3 all require subscriptions. And Sky in particular is extremely expensive. So, football finance has been out of control for so long, but until until the fan starts kind of voting with their wallet and stop paying the inflated ticket prices, the overpriced food and drink at the ground, the replica shirts, the TV subscriptions, until we start voting with the wallet and stop paying for that, I think football finances are going to continue to kind of spiral out of control.
Well, that's the thing. I think it's one thing to, that it's no longer free to watch on the likes of ITV and BBC, and you have to pay to watch it on Sky, fine. But it's not just Sky. You have to pay to watch it from 3 different suppliers, which I think is ridiculous.
I mean, as far as I know, I don't know
if it's have BT Sport. I never used to have BT Sport. It was only because I was through EE that I get to watch it on my phone, but I can't watch it on the TV. I'm not going to pay the extra amount just to watch on the TV.
No, absolutely not. And I feel like, Sky Sports as a package for Sky deal, I don't know what I'm paying. It's probably 30 or 40 quid a month for the full sports package. It's a fairly significant part of the subscription for Sky to have the football. Granted, I have the F1 and stuff as well, but anyhow, let's move on just quickly then, just to touch on what we think we can improve on. Just a couple of quick ones from me. So I've already mentioned about the legislation and governance from the government to control spending and the sort of powers that the club have. I do still believe the VAR can be useful in football, but in its current guise, if they can't improve on what it currently is, then get rid of it. But I think there must be a way to find a middle ground here, whether it's remove what VAR does and how much it can be used for, or just stop relying on it so much and stop giving the referees an easy out just to constantly go and look at TV screens and wait for the VAR to make a decision. But the last one, it's an idea I've had for a little while, is for anyone that's a Formula One fan, they'll know if a driver makes a mistake, if he hits somebody or speeds in the pit lane or whatever it might be, he gets points on his racing license. And when you get to a certain number of points, you get a race ban. Now, in Formula One, that's quite big because especially if you're challenging near the top of the championship, or even if you're not, frankly, a bit like football, the higher up in the team championship that you finish, the more money you get. So it's quite a big thing if you do miss a race. And I just feel like maybe you could do something like that within football. So you could have like some kind of independent team set up, made up of maybe ex-pros, for example, and have a penalty system for dissent, for crowding the referees, for general cheating and diving, that sort of thing. And you could have individual points, so a player can pick up points based on the severity of what he's done, and also those points go towards a larger team pot as well, if you like. So, each individual player, you count them all up, and that's what the team has. And then when you hit certain thresholds, the player would get banned, and potentially the team could maybe start getting deducted points. 1 point for your first when you get to a certain threshold or something like that. And maybe that's the way in which you could potentially start to encourage players and managers to stop with all this gamesmanship.
Yeah. It would be nice to see some sort of system come in to try and stop with the diving and that. For me, I wouldn't bother trying to fix or sort of change VAR. I would just scrap it completely. I don't enjoy it. For me, it sucks all the enjoyment out of football, especially when goals are scored. Because I feel like I'm sat there for 10 minutes while they decide whether it's a goal or not, and I just miss that sort of euphoria of a last minute goal without having to sit there for 10 minutes wondering if it's going to count or not.
No, I mean, as much as I think it still can work in some form, I would not be sad in the slightest to see the back of it. So I'm not sitting here as a massive advocate for it. I'm just saying that I still believe there is a way it can work. So any other ideas, Dan or Fran, about what we might be able to tweak?
I mean, I feel like it was kind of obvious before, but I do have an issue with the amount they're paid.
Yeah, I mean,
something to do with salaries, and then VAR in its current form needs to go because you can't really enjoy it. But I guess like you, Chris, I wouldn't say that. I'd say that it can be worked on to be made better and to fit in a bit more succinctly and smoothly with the game. But at the moment, it's just shit, so it should go.
For me as well, I would do something with the agents, because I feel like agents are ruining football, especially with the likes of, Pogba and Haaland. I feel like agents are they're using their players as pawn. I know obviously that they've got to try and make as much money as they can, but they're literally using players as pawns because they know that if they move them to like a Dortmund, they can get a massive payout, and then they can move them to a United and get a massive payout, and then a Real Madrid to finish off their career and get another massive payout. And they're constantly sort of touting. It's a bit like with Pogba, constantly saying, "Oh yeah, he might leave this season," and sort of sticking him on the market and trying to get the biggest fee going while he's still a United player.
No, I don't disagree. Right, we must move on. We're only going to talk about a couple of the games from the weekend today before we get the guest on. So we're going to touch quickly on the Carabao Cup final. Our first trophy of the season settled. And it was done with fans back in the stadium. How awesome was it to see and hear the fans back in the stadium at the weekend?
Yeah, it was nice. It looked like quite a lot as well. I know it was only 8,000, I think, overall, but it looked a lot more than that.
I was quite surprised by, I was expecting them to all be spread out really thinly around the entire stadium, but actually they were kind of grouped together in places. I thought, does that not defeat the object of what we're trying to achieve here? I don't know.
I don't think it was a very good test, let's put it that way, because they'd all, by the end of it, they all had their masks off and they were all together. So
I'm sure they probably weren't supposed to be stood that close together.
Yeah, but I guess we'll see. I mean, this was meant to be a test to see whether or not it can be done safely, and I guess they'll be monitoring it closely. All those people you would hope have done the kind of the track and trace stuff, and they'll maybe get tested at some point. And if there is a breakout from it, then it's obviously not a good result, but hopefully things all positive, and we can start looking to get more fans back in as the season closes out. Ryan Mason took charge of his second game for Spurs, and this was probably the textbook definition of trial by fire against Pep Guardiola's Man City. So Fran, I guess it's a question for you. Like, were you disappointed with how Spurs approached this game, or was it just a case of that City were just too good?
Yeah, I mean, they weren't exactly pushing. Like, with City, I feel like you've got to be all over them, and you've got to be like, as soon as City had the ball, which was pretty much the whole time, like there was literally no pressure on any of the players whatsoever. I think like once maybe Harry Kane ran up to one of them, and that's when City made a mistake, and I was just watching it like, why is this not happening all the time? Like Tottenham were like, I wouldn't say they were holding back, but they were just putting no pressure on the ball whatsoever. And even I know that you need to do that against City and like try and force them to make mistakes, because City were just running that game absolutely ragged, and Tottenham, it just felt like they weren't doing much, and it felt like they weren't even trying. And for like Son to be crying at the end, like I get he did try, but I mean, come on, like I feel like no one was really trying, if I'm honest, in that game.
I'll be honest. I mean, I've kind of forgot that Son was even playing. He was so absent in that game.
Well, exactly. That's why I was like, why crying? You should have tried harder.
Does Mourinho still being in charge make a difference in this game? I guess that's the question that a lot of people are asking. You know, was it a mistake to sack him so close to a cup final, which ultimately he was brought in to try and bring to the club?
I don't really know what he could have done, what he would have done that differently, because he's not an attacking player, like manager either. So I don't know, but Dan, what were you?
I think they would have won it with Mourinho, just because he has that knack of winning trophies, and he had won a trophy at every club he was at. So I felt like he would have continued that tradition by winning that trophy. But obviously that tradition's ended.
Look at their last few games.
Oh yeah, I know. I completely agree with you. They've been awful, but he just has that knack for turning up in like the cup finals and stuff. I mean, he did it with United. You know, we were absolutely crap, and then we ended up winning the Europa League, and then he got sacked the following season. He just has a knack of winning trophies.
I get he has a knack, but his players didn't have a knack.
No, but I mean, you look at that Spurs team, and they're more than good enough, especially going forward. Like Spurs only had 2 shots on target the entire game, and with the lineup of having Son, Lucas Moura, Harry Kane, and Gareth Bale, you've got to be having more than 2 shots on target.
I appreciate City are very good at the moment, and they were very much on top form. But yeah, Spurs were shit. In some
it's easy to forget as well that, you know, the Premier League game earlier in the season, Spurs, didn't they win 2 or 3-0 at White Hart Lane? So, you know, the tactic of sitting back and countering attacking wasn't the worst tactic, and kind of most teams are going to set up like that against Man City, to be brutally honest. But in order for that to work, you have to close down the spaces. You've got to get tight. You've got to stop City from playing and disrupt them. And it just felt like City were given the freedom of the pitch. It was like an attack v defence drill for the most part of that game.
If I was manager, I would have got the whole team in to study the sort of Chelsea v City game, because Chelsea didn't give City a chance. And I always thought Chelsea, watching that game, I always thought there was only going to be one winner, which there was in the end, and it was Chelsea. So
Spurs players were like jogging around the pitch. Even when City got the ball and went on the attack, they were just jogging. Like they just weren't even trying.
Yeah, there was some controversy in this game. The goal scorer, Aymeric Laporte, should he have been on the pitch when he scored the goal?
No.
Yeah, I think that's fairly unanimous, that one. I mean, I honestly, I cannot believe the referee hasn't given a yellow card there for that first challenge. I mean, as textbook yellow cards go, that's about as obvious as it's going to get.
Yeah, and it's always the way that sort of player involved goes on to score the winner, isn't it?
Yeah. So, yeah, obviously the quadruple was stopped last week with Chelsea beating City, as we mentioned, but this is now the 4th time in a row that they've won at this League Cup, so they sort of attained a quadruple of sorts. Just to kind of finish off on this game by talking about a couple of players, I'm going to be really controversial with this. I'm going to probably anger some people. Is Raheem Sterling overrated? And should he command the starting place with England that we probably know he does, because we know Southgate likes him and we know that he's probably going to play him. But I don't know. I've just watched Raheem Sterling a few times recently, and I've watched him for England as well in the last few games. And I just find him so damn greedy. I mean, Salah gets so much stick for how greedy he is at Liverpool, and yet Sterling never seems to get any. And I would argue that Sterling is just as greedy, if not more so, than Salah.
I think he's very greedy in England matches. I think during the what did we just watch? The
World Cup qualifiers.
Yeah, the qualifier. During that, I think he's very greedy in terms of like he knows people are watching him and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, definitely for the England games, I think he was very greedy. And maybe with Man City he is, because they don't have like with like the lack of Aguero, I guess they don't really have like an out and out striker, do they? Like all of them in like City have loads of players that can get the ball in the back of the net. So I think maybe, he's just got, I don't know, I wouldn't say he's feeling the pressure because everyone knows he's a good player. But yeah, I would agree with the whole Salah thing because I don't really like Salah because he's greedy. But then, I would say that Sterling is as well. But I don't know if that means he's overrated because he is a very good player.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I suppose the next question is that if he is to be, not guaranteed that starting place for England, should his teammate Phil Foden get that slot? Because once again, he was outstanding 100%. For City.
110%. I literally said, did I not at the weekend that I think he'll start. I think he should start for England.
I think Foden will start on the right and Sterling will start on the left.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's quite an amazing career he's already had. I mean, he's already played over 100 games for City. He's won 10 trophies in his club career, and I'm assuming that is counting. His club and country. So I'm assuming that's counting things like the success he had at youth level with England. They won the under-17 World Cup, I think it was. So yeah, it's quite amazing just what the potential that he has. He's only 20 years old, so he's at the perfect club, you would say, with someone like Guardiola there to nurture him and really bring out his talent.
Yeah, and playing with the likes of De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, Aguero. I mean, you can't really ask for better players to play around you, could you?
No, exactly. Right, just very quickly, I want to touch on Spurs and the manager situation. So Ryan Mason has basically said that after the game that Spurs are 4 to 5 years behind Man City. I mean, based on the damage that Mourinho may or may not have done to that squad and how one side of that game was yesterday, 4 or 5 years might even be generous. But the bookies' favourite, would you believe, is Maurizio Sarri to take over at Spurs. What do you make of that?
The old Chelsea manager. I find that a bit of an odd one, actually.
Because he wasn't exactly his fast-flowing football, was he?
No, but I'd like to see like Eddie Howe get it, personally.
Oh my God, I'm so here for
that. And then down the list, so you got Julian Nagelsmann, who was second favourite, but he's apparently agreed to take over at Bayern Munich, so that's not happening. Then you've got Nuno Espirito Santo from Wolves, and then the fourth name on the list is Scott Parker, who started his coaching career at Spurs and has playing history with the club, and also, he's earned plaudits for what he's done at Fulham, despite the fact they're looking destined for the drop. Could he be given a little project and, do or try to do what Lampard failed to do at Chelsea?
As a neutral, I'd definitely be up for that. But it's a big old gamble, especially for a club that's so desperate to win trophies.
Yeah, absolutely. And then final question, one word answer from you both. Harry Kane, does he stay in the summer or does he go? Dan?
I would go.
You would go, but do you think he'll go?
Do I think he'll stay or go?
Yeah.
I think he'll stay.
Yeah, Fran?
I don't know. I'm on the fence.
Okay. Right. We're actually sort of running out of time because sorry?
What about you?
I personally think he's going to stay. I think he wants to go. I think he'll want to go, but I don't think he's going to be able to. I think Levy's going to price him out of it.
Yeah, I agree.
So, I was planning on talking West Ham Chelsea, but I think we're running out of time for the first half of the show. But let's just touch on it very quickly. And I just wanted to say that, obviously Chelsea strengthened their grip on the top four. It was a pretty boring game. Let's talk two things. One, I want to talk about the red card for Fabian Balbuena. What did you guys think of that?
Honestly, one of the worst decisions I've ever seen.
I'm so happy you said that.
Honestly, I compare it right because I don't think the referee actually would have given anything. It's only when VAR are in his ear saying, "Oh, we think you should go and have a look at that," and it sort of casts doubt in his mind. And it reminds me of like game shows, something like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And you get asked the question and you're like, well, it's A. And they're like, oh, you sure? And you're a bit like, well, I was till you said that. And that's what it reminds me of.
The constant slowing down of the images is incredible. And I just don't see what the referee thinks Balbuena could have done differently. Like how could he have possibly got his leg to stop the instant it touched the ball? I mean, it's an unfortunate coming together. It does look painful, but it's not. It's just pack your bags and go home. Game's done. The game's dead. I'd be surprised if they don't. West Ham have already said they're going to appeal it, so I'd be very surprised if that doesn't get overturned. So in terms of the game, I did think that West Ham did play quite well, despite the injury-ravaged side that we've got at the moment. But I don't think we deserved anything from the game. I think if we'd have got a point, it would have been a steal. So the top four is looking less likely than it was. There's still a lot of football to be played. We've got a good run of games now between the end of the season and now, but we need to get some of these players back from injury to do something. And now we're relying on other teams dropping points. And very quickly, from a Chelsea point of view, Mason Mount. We spoke about Phil Foden. Mason Mount has obviously been superb. Certainly the second half of this season in particular. Where does he fit into the England side? Because I think it's a given he's going to go, but should he start? And if he does, where does he fit into that England side?
100% he should start. Where will he fit in, Dan? I don't know positions, but he should start.
Yeah, I would play him in the midfield in the central role.
So if Southgate plays, if he does his sort of three at the back, two wing backs, two central midfielders, does that mean that we're potentially saying Rice and Mount, the two best friends as kids? Do you think that would be the centre midfield partnership?
Yeah, I think so. I think you've got Rice sort of doing your defensive work, and you've got Mount being your playmaker. So I think that would work out quite well.
Yeah. But yeah, one thing's for sure that I'm very excited to see Mount, Foden at the European Championships to really see what they can do on the big stage. Right, okay, let's head to a break. When we come back, we're going to get Nick on the show. We're going to talk all things Southampton. See you in a minute. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. So we have Nick on the show, Southampton fan. Say hi, Nick.
Hi there, guys.
So Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, you are quite a long-term season ticket holder at Southampton.
Well, about 4 or 5 years. To be honest, when I gave up, as you know, playing football, we played together. Started going to watch Southampton. Getting a bit old for playing now, so that's the logical step.
So, I mean, getting into what we would usually do on the show, we would have a guest lined up and we would talk about a game from the weekend. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Southampton didn't have a game at the weekend, but there's still plenty to talk about with them. So, I mean, we've all heard the saying, a game of two halves. But would it be fair to say that Southampton's season has been one of two halves?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, obviously, we had pretty much a dream first half of the season. We were basically saying after sort of 15, 16 games, we're safe. I think we had sort of nearly 30, I think it was 29 points after that many games. We're playing brilliant football, didn't look like Europe was probably more of an option than being down in a dogfight. Which I think is probably, we're not quite there, but we were certainly looking up, that's for sure. And then obviously got onto a bad run of form.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, if you look at the form in the first half of the season, if we go up to January the 4th, which was the first game at the turn of the year for Southampton, you lost just 4 games in the first half of that season. Absolutely astonishing run. I mean, at one point you were fourth for a couple of weeks. I think you might have dropped a position here and there for when other games were played, but you were there. We were waxing lyrical about the job that Ralph Hasenhüttl was doing, and then since January the 4th, it's just 3 wins. I mean, that's not just a turn in form. That is that's dropping off a cliff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, we were top of the league for, I think it was a weekend or whatever it was, which was fun. And we were doing the whole freeze the league.
Stop the count, wasn't it? Donald Trump stuff.
Yeah, so we were doing all that stuff. The last big win, beat Liverpool. Hasenhüttl cried. And and then that was it. Literally, I mean, in fairness, we had at one point 10 injuries to our first team. Like the bench was unrecognisable. It was all academy players.
Right.
When you're a club, obviously the size of Southampton, and obviously you'll know, being a West Ham fan, the depth in your squad is just not there like it is, for some of the bigger clubs. Don't want to sound like a Liverpool fan, because I know they go on about the injuries quite a lot, but it did kill us a bit, and without having the quality to bring in to replace him, we really did struggle, and it showed.
I mean, with West Ham, I think that's exactly what we're seeing now. I mean, West Ham have been very fortunate that despite having a really threadbare squad at the start of the season, we've managed to go through the vast majority of the season without having any really serious injuries, apart from Antonio, because his hamstrings are made of strawberry laces. But he was the only one who was in and out of the side, and because we've managed to maintain that team, and we've obviously been riding a high, we've stayed up there. But now, with all the injuries we've got, you're just starting to see those cracks, and I just wonder if our push for the Champions League, as unlikely as it seemed this season, is gonna falter because of that fact. So with Southampton, obviously you have had injuries, but do you look back on this season and think this was a bit of an opportunity missed with how you started?
Yeah, I mean, you've absolutely got to say that. From the stats don't lie. From where we were, for us to, I think we've picked up, it's a silly amount of points since, just enough to basically, you can look at the table and go, yeah, okay, we're probably safe now. But from saying that, from where we were, I think it was two or three wins in 15 in the Premier League. It was masked a bit by the run in the FA Cup, getting to the semi-final, but a bit of a toothless performance in that as well, to be honest. But definitely, I think, as you said, an opportunity missed to do basically what West Ham have done. My brother-in-law is a West Ham fan, and we were both sitting there in dreamland on similar points early in the season. West Ham have kicked on, and Southampton have just gone backwards. So definitely missed opportunity.
I mean, we said on the show, we were talking about Ralph Hasenhüttl and how much of a great job he's done. But now, because of what's happened in the second half of the league, second half of the season, as a Southampton fan, and maybe you probably know many other Southampton fans, what's the kind of general feeling about Ralph Hasenhüttl and the job that he's done at Southampton?
For me, I mean, I've got different views to the guys that I go to the games with. I think they're a bit more negative than I am. I try and sort of have a little bit of realism that if someone offered us 36 points with 5 games to go, or 6 games to go, however many left, would I have taken it? And I probably would have done at the start of the season. Yeah. But begrudgingly, I'd have hoped for a few more. A lot of we don't have a plan B. I think it's a big problem with how we play, with very high intensity, high pressing, and do concede a lot at the end of games because we run out of steam. And then obviously if you've got those guys that they start missing games because they're injured, Ings misses a few games because he gets knocks here and there. The fullbacks for us are absolutely key. Walker Peters and Bertrand, literally, if one of them is missing, it's team, and we have nothing to come in at fullback. We don't have a fullback that's covered. We got rid of Target. We've loaned out a couple of the younger guys that we had at fullback. So we literally do not have another fullback at the club. So they're huge misses for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's disappointing, I suppose, from where we are now. But again, I think you've got to put it into perspective. And we're going to be playing Premiership football again next season, in a season that's been ravaged by no fans, COVID, packed fixtures. Everybody suffered a bit from it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not great, but it is what it is. My opinion on Ralph, having watched Southampton play with managers like Mark Hughes, Pellegrino, the most boring style of football you will ever see. Negative, 10 men behind the ball, try and nick a goal and not lose a game, to go into a manager where we play front foot football, we get at teams, we shut them down high up the pitch. It's a completely different game.
Yeah.
And it's a lot more entertaining to watch. We get thumped 9-0 occasionally, which is obviously not ideal, but it's still a good, entertaining brand of football we play. And I think that's why Hasenhüttl gets the praise that he had been getting until this bad run of form.
Yeah. I mean, earlier on in the season, I don't think it would have been unrealistic to say that, based on the fact that Southampton had been, up until the turn of the year, if you go back actually to the season before, when you did get beaten by Leicester in that infamous, was it 9-0, 9-1 game, the run that you guys went on from that point to the turn of this year was absolutely astonishing. So Hasenhüttl's stock was extremely high. He was being linked with one or two larger jobs. I mean, I think there was even talk of potentially taking over at Chelsea when Lampard went. I think it was a bit, it wasn't very likely, but the fact that his name was even in the hat just showed, what people thought of his job. But now, his stock is probably, you would argue that the opportunity has gone now, that he's not going to get that bigger job should he have wanted to leave.
Yeah, no, agreed. And to be honest, it might be a blessing in disguise for us, having had most of our good players and managers taken by the top 6 teams for over the last sort of 10 years. If we have to keep losing 9-0 once a season to make sure we keep a manager that gets us playing good football, then so be it. It's a dreadful night, but he does play a really good brand of football. It's a good watch as a fan. I don't. We're on a bad run at the moment. I think sort of get to the end of the season, take stock of where we are, and sort of go again and hopefully kick on. I think he'll be given a run next season at least. If it continues, obviously, in the way it is, though, as you know, there's no loyalty in football now. So. On
the topic of that 9-0, you said, obviously when it happened again this season against Man United, you were smack in the middle of a bad run of form as well.
Yeah.
As a fan, I mean, it's been West Ham. I remember got dicked like 7 or 8-1, I think, years ago by Blackburn. This was probably a good decade ago, but so I understand the pain of being beaten like that and humiliated like that. But as a fan, when you see it happen twice in the space of 18 months, I mean, how do you? It's a cliche, but how do you feel when you see that happening? Is it just a case of head in your hands and think fuck it, move on, or does it linger?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, obviously the Leicester 9-0 was a man sent off very early. The Man United game was and one of our academy players playing his first game start for the club in midfield against United, sent off within 60 seconds of the game. And so
that didn't help, did
it? You're 10 men against a rampant United side, and as I say, we don't have a plan B. So it's not like, right, okay, we'll reshuffle, we'll solid up, these areas and then go. They keep trying to play the football, and we had I don't know if you remember, there was a shocking red card late on in the game when it was like 6-0.
Yes, was that Bednarek, wasn't it, for the penalty?
Yeah, and it's the only red card that went to VAR that they gave that there has been, unless the one at the weekend has been rescinded yet, which we can talk about that in a bit, but the only red card that's actually been rescinded after VAR overturned it and sent him off. I have another red card that's been rescinded after going to VAR, the referee looking at it and saying it's a red card, but the FA, the referees panel said, no, you got that wrong. And then they scored 3 goals in like the last, I think it was like 5-10 minutes when we were down to 9 men. So it was, it wasn't a great result, but it was probably a bit, there was a few factors which didn't help in it. Sure.
Was part of you thinking, well, based on the last time we got stuffed 9-0 and the run that we went on, were you thinking, actually, this isn't bad because now we're going to go on a great run? And obviously that hasn't really worked out.
You'd like to think so, but unfortunately it hasn't worked out. We're playing some good football, especially the last few weeks. Again, not the FA Cup. We were poor against Leicester, but we played well against Spurs last weekend. But first 45 minutes were brilliant. Battered them really, and should have been 2 or 3-0 up. Come off at 1-0 at half time. Spurs come out second half, much improved. And then again we get the VAR penalty in the 88th minute where he's judged to be on the line of the 18-yard box when the ball's been kicked at Alderweireld chest high into his arm, and that wasn't even looked at, but the penalty on the edge of the box wasn't given. We've not had a lot of luck either. But
just to finish off on Southampton, so there's a couple of players that I wanted to touch on. So Danny Ings obviously has been a massively important player for Southampton in the last 2 seasons. There's been a lot of there's even been rumours that he might end up at Man City. I think that's probably a bit far-fetched, but it does at least show just how well he's liked and how far he's come at Southampton. So, but how important is it that Southampton keep him for next season?
It's massively important. I think they're obviously delaying on a deal for Danny. From what I've heard, it's to do with his sell-on price that we're trying to put on is too high. He wants a lower price, and that's literally the only reason he hasn't signed the contract.
When you say sell-on price, you mean release clause?
Release clause. So that was the last I'd heard, and it's gone sort of a bit quiet since then.
How long does he have left in his contract?
I think it's the end of next season, I believe. Right. So, we need to get a move on, basically.
Yeah, but it's easy to forget. He's still only 28 as well, so he's still got, assuming he can stay injury-free, he's still got quite a few years left in him.
Yeah, we've managed to protect him quite a lot, to be fair, considering it's such a packed schedule this season. We've done well to sort of protect him when we've been able to, sort of give him a rest in games that we didn't sort of need him to play in and stuff like that. So, but you've only got to look at, I think the blessing that we've had is where he sat on the bench at Liverpool for so many seasons through either injury or just not being able to get in the team, other than the top 6. And to be honest, unless Kane goes to somewhere, I don't see him walking in and starting up front for any of those top sort of 6 clubs that you would suggest. Yeah. And under that, we're not a million miles off sort of the rest of them. His family live in Southampton. He grew up there. So we're kind of lucky in that way that he's quality, but just not seen as that much better to get in and start in those teams. So hopefully that's our saving grace, I think.
Yeah. And then other player I just want to touch on as well is James Ward-Prowse. He's been a Saints player for a very long time. I believe he actually came through the academy there. We know his quality at set pieces. We've seen that on a number of occasions this year. He's now got into the England squad. He's had a couple of games for England. Granted, that was largely to do, you would think, with the number of injuries they had at the time. But the fact that he was there still shows how good he was. Are you surprised that he's never really been linked with a move away?
All I'm going to say is thank God he's not quick. Otherwise he wouldn't be with us. He's from when I first started watching him, he's, they don't really have wide men like him now because he used to play wide, but he wasn't quick enough. So that didn't work because people started playing front threes and he couldn't play there. So he actually had to adjust his game a bit. He bulked up, put some work in the gym, bulked up, and became that central midfield player that you see now. So fair play to him. He made the position his own and built himself into what you see now. And dead ball takers. I've not seen a better one in the Premier League since Beckham. I rate him that highly. I think his free kick.
I'd throw Dimitri Payet in the mix there.
Yeah, I thought you might do. But he's just absolute quality.
I do liken him a little bit to Mark Noble at West Ham. They are playing with different qualities. Granted, they're not the same player, but in terms to what he means to the club, and the fact that they've had at various points in various parts in their career rather very, very good seasons, but. It's almost like everyone just kind of accepts that he is going to be a one club man. He is going to be a legend at the club, and just sort of leave him to it. And
absolutely,
it's a dying breed now. The one club player. So it's still quite nice to see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's as I said earlier, there's no loyalty in football now unless you're playing for a team where you're not going to go somewhere else because they're one of the top clubs in the country. Then. Yeah, and so people move on when they're good enough. It's the way of the world.
Yeah. Right. So before I get your thoughts on the question we put out to the rest of the fans, Dan or Fran, was there anything that you guys wanted to throw in?
Obviously, just talking about sort of players leaving there, but what about players coming in? Have you got any positions in mind that you feel like Southampton need to fill?
All of them. I think we're just, and this is where it's very, very difficult. We're hugely lacking in depth. As I said earlier, we've got no fullback cover. But try being a Southampton and getting good cover to come in at fullback. Like we've been linked with people like Brandon Williams, who can play left and right back. Is Brandon Williams going to want to come in and sit on the bench? Probably not. So getting the right quality to come in, knowing that they're going to have to earn their way into the team, is very difficult. So that's the main problem we've got. We're doing okay in a lot of the other positions. Actually, now to be fair, we've brought Che Adams in for Birmingham last year. He looks decent. Stuart Armstrong plays in the middle. He's very, very underrated. Really, really like him. And we brought a young lad in the middle of the park. What's his name? Romeo got injured and he's been playing every game. I can't remember his name off the top of my head now. Diallo, that's the one. And he's only 21. Looks very good, very assured. So we are getting there, but there's just a few positions. Fullback being for me probably the most important one. With the way that we play, we need to try and get some fullbacks in. But as I said, because of who we are, and people want to play 90 minutes if they're going to come to us. It's tough.
Okay, excellent. Well, just to wrap up then, before we move on to the final two parts of the show, we've obviously talked at length in the first part of the show about what things we would like to see come into football to improve it or changes made. We also put it out to the fans, but what about you, Nick? What would you like to see changed or come into football to improve things?
I'd like to see, if they're going to keep VAR, I'd like to see footballers run VAR. I think as to say, referring back to the red card given at the weekend for West Ham, if that's a red card, then we all might as well pack a bags and go and play netball or something, because that was an absolute joke. Like, I just don't get what these people are seeing. They need to stop using slow motion in the VAR decisions as well. For me, every time you do it in a slow mo, it looks like a car crash. It doesn't work. You need to make it in real time. For me, the main changes are just in VAR. I think it's clear to see the displeasure from all of the fans that it's so bad most of the time that we'd rather just not have it. That for me is that's the main one for me. I don't agree with any of this 60-minute football. The younger generation don't absolute load of rubbish. As the bloke is that set up the European Super League. So I wouldn't listen to a word that came out of his mouth. That's for sure.
Yep. Agreed. Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Nick. So now we're going to move on to Dan's stat. Dan the stat man.
You didn't warn me about that.
I've got an even better one coming, mate. You wait.
So the question this week, which I'll put out to both of you, Aymeric Laporte became the third French player to score in a League Cup final, but which two French players came before him?
And what were the years again? You said earlier, Dan?
The first one was 2006, and the second was 2014.
2006, Thierry Henry.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. I was going to say Thierry Henry. 2006. Gosh.
God, blimey. I mean, 2014,
Yeah.
that's not...
2006, that's 14 years ago. Robert Perez, maybe?
No.
Who else would have been?
Wilton.
I'm trying to think of the big
Which team had all
clubs at
the
the
French
time.
Players?
Well, it was Arsene Wenger, wasn't it, to just go through the entire team.
Yeah, it's the Arsenal team. And then they got into FA Cup finals like every year. Well, back then, so not so much now.
I must admit, I don't
Does
know.
it help if I tell you
pass.
that the 2006 one wasn't an Arsenal player?
Not really, because that was where my line in the sand was.
Do you want the answers?
Go on then.
Yeah, go on.
So 2006 was Louis Saha for Manchester United.
Was never getting that.
No.
And 2014 was Samir Nasri for Man City.
Yeah, I wasn't getting that either.
Yeah, we would have been here for a few years trying to guess that, I suspect. So, right. Are you ready for this one, Nick? You thought that first jingle was good. You wait till you hear this one.
Take you back
That's
to
what
the
that's what
80s.
you call a jingle.
That is retro.
Right. Welcome back to Football with Fran. Nick, have you listened to it before? Do you know the rules?
Kind of, yeah. Chris ran me through it earlier.
Okay, good. So yeah, basically I'll say a player's name, how many teams they play for, and on the first round I'll come to you first to tell me how many teams you think you can name, and then I'll just see if Chris can outbid you.
Cool. Is this Premier League teams?
No, it's everybody.
Yeah, it's a mixture.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so the first player is...
Am I reading it?
Yeah.
Oh. Jose Font. Jose Font.
And he's played for 10 teams.
10?
10? My God.
Jeez.
It's fine. Both boys have only been able to name 2 before for some players. So don't be embarrassed to start low, work your way up.
I'm not far off that, to be honest. He was with us for donkeys. Mate, I'm going to go like 2.
Okay. Chris?
I mean, I think I'm pretty sure Nick knows the 2 because it's probably the same 2 that I've got.
Yeah, probably.
So I'm going to have to take a stab and go for a third.
Nick, do you think you can do 4?
And I will allow you to fire away.
Okay. Well, the 2 obvious ones, Southampton and West Ham.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm going to just take a stab that he's Portuguese. I'm going to take a stab that he's played for a Portuguese club. So I'll take a stab at Sporting Lisbon.
No.
Oh.
I think you're right on the Portuguese team, though. But I think it might have been. I mean, it's either Porto or Benfica, I think. From memory.
Yeah.
So he's played for Sporting CP? B? What's that?
Oh, that is Sporting Lisbon.
That's Sporting Lisbon, yeah.
Oh, Dan said it wasn't.
Well,
Oh, I'll take the first answer, that's fine.
it's the B team, though. It's not the A team.
What was that like? Way Valley and Way Valley Resorts?
I think we're going to need an official steward's inquiry here.
I like the fact you get stitched up by your own.
It's a bit like Real Madrid B. I mean, I guess they're like a second division team, aren't they? So I guess it counts.
I mean,
Well,
so
what
I've
we
just
said-
I've just googled them, and it says it stands for Sporting Club Portugal, is what the SCP bit is. Otherwise known as Sporting in Portugal or Sporting Lisbon abroad.
Yeah, that'll be them.
Okay. I don't know, Chris, you can have it.
We'll have to give them that.
Yes, talk my way into that. Love it.
Yeah, that's not fair.
Speaks volumes that you have to talk your way into a win. Chris ain't won.
When you've yet to win an official game on this show, I'll do anything and whatever it takes.
Darren, can you?
Yeah, you want me to read the rest?
Yeah.
So there's quite a few Portuguese teams actually. There's Felgueiras, Vitória. I mean, don't quote me that I'm reading these right. Vitória Setúbal. Benfica is a nice easy one. Pacos Ferreira, Estrela Amadora, Crystal Palace,
Nice Portuguese team.
Southampton, West Ham, and then I think he went to China, Dalian Yifang.
Yeah, I know.
And now he's currently at Lille in France.
Oh, is he still playing?
Yeah, he's at Lille. Yeah.
Are they top of the league, Lille, at the moment in France?
He must be like 107 years old now. He's so old. But I think he still plays for Portugal as well.
Yeah, alongside Pepe, isn't it?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Okay, right. Chris, you can bid first on this one. Andre Schürrle, he played for 7 teams.
Okay. I will go with 4.
4?
Ooh, girl!
Well, you can have that. That's all you, buddy. That's all you.
So then, Chris?
Chelsea.
Yes.
Fulham.
Oh, yeah.
Borussia Dortmund.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this one is a bit of a guess, but I think he played for Wolfsburg.
Yes, Chris!
Yes.
That's well played, man. That's good.
Well done. Damn, what?
It was like Schalke.
The others are Leverkusen.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Mainz. Is it Mainz? One of the two.
Yeah, Mainz.
And Spartak Moscow.
Oh, well. We had to rush it. Nice one. I was not going to get that.
Pressure now. Only got to win one of the next 3. My God.
Oh, my God.
Oh, I'll never live it down if I can.
Well, Joe Morton will finally have some company.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nick, you bid on this one first.
Yeah.
Alex Song
Alex
is
Song.
played for 8 teams.
Oh, my God. I mean, obviously I know one. I literally don't know who else he's played for. Alex Song. I'll go 1. Pass it to Chris.
Chris?
I can do 2.
Nick? 3?
I guarantee you could do 3,
Oh,
Nick.
yeah, I can do 3. I think I can do 3.
Chris?
Okay. Can I do 4? I don't think I can do 4. So yeah, go on, Nick. Name me 3.
I'm pretty sure he played for Arsenal. Pretty sure he played for Barcelona. Did he go there? It was like a weird one.
Yeah.
Barcelona. And the other one, I think he played for a team in Italy. I might be wrong. I think it was Roma. I'm not sure. No, he didn't.
It was. Did he play for a team in Italy?
He didn't play. Well, unless... Is Bastia Italian? I'm not sure if they are or not.
Oh,
don't know, but yeah.
Almighty Google.
Bastia are French. No,
I'm afraid.
Good try,
no
though.
idea.
So that's that.
Good try,
Arsenal,
loser.
Charlton Athletic, Barcelona,
Charlton?
West Ham.
Yeah.
I forgot you played for Charlton. That's outrageous. My goodness.
It's nuts.
Ruben Kazan.
Yeah, I'm Ruben Kazan.
And what's the last
yeah.
one?
I don't know how you pronounce it. It's a Swiss team. SIOM. Shun.
Sure.
Simon? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, what's more exciting
Jesus.
here is that Chris won.
I've won a game.
Yeah.
I mean,
whitewash
you've
so
picked,
far.
I think I've been, stitched up a little bit because most of the players played for West Ham. But I think they've been tailored. Regan Song played for West
I
Ham.
was just trying to think of players that played for a lot of teams.
Yeah. Oh no.
To be fair, I did go for Jose Font, who was a Southampton player.
Yeah, I know. He was with us for quite a while as well.
Right, playing for Pride now, Nick.
Well, we'll keep going. So
Yeah,
the
keep
next
going.
player is Tom Heaton. He's played for 10 clubs.
What?
Wow.
10?
Oh my goodness.
Jesus.
Or maybe make that 9.
Yeah, 10 or 9, it doesn't really matter.
Oh, no, make
I
it
think I can do. I think I could do 3.
performances.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's all you then. I think on 3.
Yeah, it's actually 8. Dan counted it.
Well, I didn't look at that he hadn't have played for them.
But yeah, go on, Chris.
So
Apologies.
my 3: Burnley,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Aston Villa.
yeah.
I've got this feeling I'm struggling with this one, but I feel like he was at. This is a real guess, but I'm going to say Birmingham.
Ooh,
No.
yeah.
It was Bristol and Cardiff.
Jesus,
Just not
well
Birmingham. So yeah, the others were Swindon, Cardiff, QPR, Rochdale, Wickham, Wanderers, and then Cardiff and Bristol.
done. No wonder we didn't get any of them.
Jesus, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a point
Right.
for you, though, Nick.
And then
Get in
That's
there.
Yeah.
It's not a whitewash.
Pride
That's
point.
it. Yeah, I can come out the house tomorrow.
and then the last player is,
Dijabril Cisse.
and he has
Jibril
played for
Cisse.
12 teams.
Oh, he's played for literally everyone.
12.
Modern day Stan Collymore.
Yeah, he's played for a lot of teams.
So Nick, how many do you think you can name?
I know a few of these actually, which is quite good. So I'm going to go with 4.
It's a
Chris?
naughty bid, that one. That is a strong bid. I think I could probably do 4 as well, but I don't think I can do 5. So go on in, Nick. Bring it back. Restore some proper pride.
Obviously Liverpool, where his leg was put into a million pieces.
Yeah.
Marseille, pretty sure he was in France. He was at QPR, which was a bit of a weird one for a bit.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he did a stint at Sunderland as well.
You are correct. Well done.
Hey.
Very good. That was a different 4 to what I had. So I had. Did he play for Auxerre in France?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one I
from,
forgot about Sunderland. That was the one I had.
Yeah, I was even thinking. I'm pretty sure he went to Italy as well. But I couldn't remember whether it was like a Napoli or Juve or Lazio or some other team like that. I couldn't remember which one.
Lazio.
It was
I went to
Lazio, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that would have been the guess if Chris had have gone. Well, if you'd have gone 5, I'd have gone. Yeah, good luck to you.
Dan, do you want to name the others?
Yeah, the others are Panathinaikos.
Yeah.
Nice little stint at Al Garafara, if you know them.
That well-known team.
Well-known team. Yeah.
Cuban Krasnodar, another Russian team, I believe.
Yeah.
Bastia again. Saint Pierrois. I mean, there's a lot of names that I've never even heard of, to be honest.
Well, that must be like San Perozzi.
Yeah, something French.
I mean, if you've played for 12 teams in your career, and your career generally is, let's just say at best, 15 years-ish, that's a mercenary. He likes the money.
Yeah.
He's going to Russia and places like that.
He's still going as well. He's at Panathinaikos Chicago. Yeah.
Well,
I don't know if that's Greece or America.
It's got to be America, surely. No, I can't. Maybe not.
Is he actually still playing? He's got to be pushing 40 now, surely.
How old is he? Just Google it.
How old is he? He is 39.
39. Yeah.
39. Jesus.
But he actually, according to Wikipedia, he's not actually played a game since 2018. So he was at this AC Vincenza 1902 to 2018, 2019, didn't play. Then he had a year off, and he's at this Panathinaikos Chicago now, but he's not played for him.
Yeah, could you imagine you still playing at 39, Chris?
To be honest, I'm amazed I'm still playing now, and someone I haven't played for many years.
Yeah, same.
Oh dear! Right, excellent. Well, it's a win on the board. Does that make it 5-2 now?
Yeah. Well, as in, what do you mean 5-2?
As in the scores between guests and us.
Well, you've won one, and we both won one each now.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely know we've got 2. I know we're losing.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Around there.
Excellent. Well, Nick, thank you very much for coming on the show. Appreciate each one on a bit longer than we'd anticipated. So thank you for staying up late. And yeah, the show will go live tomorrow morning. Tell everybody, tell your friends, follow us on social media, everybody, and we will speak to you all next week. See you later.
Awesome. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.